What's your name?
Richard.
Richard. What's bringing you in? What would you like to work on?
I guess personal development, I would say.
Which means?
Kind of like just me developing as a person, not really like career-wise or academics, just who I am, like identity-wise. Because I feel a lot of attention inside, because there's a part of me that I believe I ought to behave this way, act this way, but then my behavior shows otherwise.
A little discrepancy between the two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Can you give me an example of a situation where you experienced that?
Sure. Can I preface this by saying one thing that I would aspire to do eventually, like get engaged in dating and that whole atmosphere, that whole world, but I refrain from that because there's a question I think about. We're saying, are you the person that the person you're looking for is looking for?
Are you that person?
Right. I ask myself that question.
Mm-hmm.
Because so often we think about finding the right person and not enough on like being the right person. And so when I reflect on that, I think like, man, like the type of like women I would go for, they would not, I don't think they'd be looking for someone like me. And I don't meet the expectations that I kind of set for myself.
So the kind of women you are looking for is what?
Well, for me, I mean, I look for someone who, first and foremost, they love God more than they could ever possibly love me.
Mm-hmm.
That takes a whole lot of pressure off of me because
Off
I'm
you.
not
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah.
Just someone who's like strong in their faith, and that's like
Mhm.
a center, a foundation for their life.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a foundation for my life as well. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, is because I have this belief that, you know, following Christ is central
Mm-hmm.
to my life. And there's a higher life that I feel like he's calling me to.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe like that's how I'm supposed to live, but I don't always behave in that way. And yeah.
So you have certain standards for yourself,
Yes.
and you believe that you don't live up to those spiritual standards.
Yeah.
And so you're worried that that woman might want somebody like that and you wouldn't measure up.
I don't even pursue it because it's like,
Oh,
I
you
guess
just-
I'm not where
You're-
I'd like
you're not
to
there.
be yet.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Is that kind of getting in the way of dating, though?
At least right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So your goal is to date, but right now you have a particular view of yourself that is preventing you from dating.
Yeah, some things that I think a woman they don't need to, or they shouldn't be dating a guy who's like wrestling with certain issues.
Uh-huh.
They should work through that kind of baggage and issues
Okay.
before pursuing a relationship.
So could you finish a sentence if I pose it to you?
Let's go for it.
I should be what before a woman dates me?
View women the way they're meant to be viewed.
That you should view women the way they're meant to be viewed. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're saying at times you don't.
Yes.
Okay. Mhm. Anything else? So right now you have this behavior that you're not dating. Do you have an emotion in there too about that?
That tension, it
That
usually
tension.
manifests itself into like guilt.
Oh, guilt.
Yes.
Even before you date.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're feeling guilty, tense in terms of emotions, and your behavior is avoidance. You're just avoiding it because you believe you don't measure up to what they need. So you've decided what they need, and you don't measure up to that.
Yeah.
Specifically, in what way don't you measure up? You should do or be what?
be sexually pure.
You should be sexually pure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, is that something you want to work on then?
course.
What? The guilt do you want to work on, or do you want to work on the avoidance?
Really, I'm trying to break repetitive patterns
Mm-hmm.
that I've noticed. Some things that I've been struggling with for years.
Okay.
Years now, and I get to thinking like I should be at a point in my life
No.
where I don't struggle with these things anymore.
So you shouldn't be struggling
Right.
at this point.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. So that's a demand you put on yourself. And how helpful is I shouldn't be struggling? How helpful is that belief toward you being sexually pure? Is that helping you?
It makes, when you kind of phrase it that way, it sounds very negative and like it makes me more frustrated. Like, man,
In what sense?
I shouldn't be struggling with this anymore. I've said that exact phrase before. It's like, I don't really say that with a smile on my face. It's more of like disappointment. It's like, what the heck, man? Like, you're better than this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And so your goal would be to be sexually pure for that woman.
Of course.
Do I have that right? Okay.
Because how could
And
I-
that would glorify God?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's important for you. So my question is, how helpful to reach that goal is for you to say you shouldn't be struggling? How's-
I don't think that's very helpful.
Oh, okay.
It's not a good way to think about it.
So why are we doing it?
Instinct, I guess.
Okay, so it's a habit.
A habit.
It's a habit. And I'm curious, are there any other beliefs in there that if I am not sexually pure, then I am blank, fill in the blank, something negative? What would it mean about you?
I guess a hypocrite.
You're a hypocrite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, like, how could I expect that out of a future significant other and not
Uh-huh.
require that for myself? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you another strange question. How does labeling yourself as a hypocrite help you to be sexually pure? So I shouldn't be going through this struggle, and I'm a hypocrite, and those beliefs help me reach sexual purity in what way?
They don't.
They don't.
They don't.
Okay. So you're interested in another way of thinking that might help you move in that direction? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I've already asked you a question. You've already said they don't help you in any way. Is there any evidence that you should have already dealt with this completely and you can move on? Is there any evidence that you should have at this point?
I guess looking at other people, other people who maybe struggled with the same battles for sexual purity and have overcome, and in my opinion, I see them view women the way they should be.
Okay, so if you look at those people, then what? That means that you
It's
should
all-
act that?
It's possible.
Oh, so you're hopeful you could do
Yeah,
that? Okay,
there's
so,
hope.
well, that's good. We don't want you to
Yeah.
despair about this. But is there any evidence that absolutely at this point in your life, you should have a total grip on this? Where's that written?
It's not written anywhere, but it's just like a personal expectation.
It's a demand that you put on yourself that's not helping you.
Yes, and it's also part of the calling. I feel like I'm called to live life without even a hint of like sexual immorality.
Okay. So that's a value of yours. It sounds like that's something that you would value living out,
Yeah.
but demanding it doesn't help you. Or at least up to this point, right?
Demanding, well, it's weird because like I could demand it, but I don't even know why it happens where you know what you ought to be doing, you don't do. And the thing you probably shouldn't be doing, it's like there's something in you that desires to do it anyway.
Yeah, I have a word for that.
What would you call it?
Human. That sounds like all of us, right? But not all of us are real hard on ourselves like you are, right? That somehow you're defective or, what was the word you used? You're a hypocrite because there's a discrepancy between the demand and the reality, right? I'm going to ask you another strange question. What if you kept that as, and I'm going to try to use your language, and if it doesn't seem right, change it, okay?
Okay.
What if you kept that goal as a godly desire? You know what I mean? To be sexually pure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a godly desire that you want. And you acted out of the godly desire rather than escalating that godly desire up to an absolute demand.
So kind of like strive for it.
Mm-hmm. What would that be like for you? If you didn't say, I absolutely have to do this, and I'm a hypocrite if I don't live up to it, you go, this is my goal. You know, it means I'm a human that has some flaws, and I can do what I can to try to get there. How would that feel differently than I demand that I be this way, and I'm a hypocrite if I don't?
I think it would make it easier to move on whenever, you do make a mistake or stumble on the journey.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let me ask it in another way.
Yeah.
You have this friend, because I'm sure you know some other people who have the same problem, right? And they come to you and they go, you know what? I want to be sexually pure. I screw it up every once in a while, or, my thoughts are not pure, whatever. And I'm a hypocrite. Would you go, well, yeah, you are. And you probably ought to just give up on life.
No.
Just go jump off a cliff.
No thanks.
No. Why, and why wouldn't you tell them that?
It's just discouraging.
It is. So why are you telling yourself this? It's not because you end up discouraged, right? And frustrated. So,
I'd rather be uplifted when I encounter someone who has a similar struggle.
yeah.
And use it as a time to build each other up.
Great answer. And so what could you tell yourself that would uplift you instead of making you feel like a hypocrite? What could you tell yourself about you in the midst of this struggle, this very human struggle, right? Well, some of us don't struggle because that's not our goal, right? But that's your goal. So what could you tell yourself about you, about having this struggle?
I mean that there's hope. That's the first thing that popped in my
That there's
mind.
hope. Mm-hmm.
Like, don't throw in the towel. Like,
Don't throw in the towel. Well, then let me pose it in a different way.
Sure.
It's because you believe in God, and that's very, very important to you. So if you're struggling, when God looks down at you, does he go, what a hopeless, piece of crap? Is that what God's saying?
No,
What would God be thinking about you?
I love you.
So can you love
Depending on
you?
whether you meet up to, my standards or the callings, or whether you mess up, love you the same.
And
So it's not like I feel like I fall short of his expectations, because I feel like I'm already covered for that. But it's like my relationship with myself, Richard's relationship with Richard.
And so which relationship is more important for you?
Richard's relationship with God.
So
Yeah.
again, what could you tell yourself so that you could see you as God would see you?
That I'm loved even if I make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So keep going.
And how would that feel other than, I should be at a different point in this. I should have this all solved, and I'm a hypocrite for...
It'd be easier to let go of the guilt and put it aside.
And what would you want to feel instead of guilt? In those moments when you know that there's that struggle and you're just going with the side that you don't value.
I would want to feel freedom. Because I
Freedom.
don't want to be, chained up, or feel like I'm kind of in prison, or feel like I'm trapped in this repetitive cycle.
Yeah.
Again, time and time again.
Right. Which makes sense. But if we look at Guilt has you being totally focused on yourself, right? And beating up on the self. And if you can beat up on yourself, then you're going to feel really bad, and you increase the likelihood that you'll act out in bad ways against your values.
Right.
You know? So instead of guilt, what would remorse be like? You go, I wish I hadn't thought that way about that woman, but I did, you know?
Right. Remorse.
You see the
I guess-
difference between the two?
Maybe remorse is more of like that conviction that like this is wrong.
It
You
does.
actually feel.
Yeah, guilt and remorse start out in that same way. This is wrong.
But guilt is probably like you keep going down into like self-pity and
That's right.
other destructive.
Which helps in what way?
No,
It doesn't. But remorse doesn't beat up on the self. It
it's like an
focuses.
acknowledgement of what happened,
Yeah,
and then it gives you an opportunity to move in either direction.
yeah. Let me ask another question. So let's say the next time you view a woman in a way that you think you shouldn't be viewing her, what could you tell yourself that would have you feel remorse rather than guilt?
Or like, I guess like in the moment, have the thought that like, this isn't worth it and this isn't going to satisfy you. There's something greater out there.
And that greater is?
Just be patient. I think
With yourself?
delving into this like microwave society where you want instant gratification, it generally leads to me feeling guilt, all those negative emotions that we talked about. I think I need to just be patient.
That
and
makes perfect
Not go
sense.
after, little Tostitos when God's trying to give me Papa John's.
There you go. Haven't thought it that way. So it's really interesting. So immediate gratification in this sense could be you putting the demand on you that this struggle has to be over immediately, rather than saying,
Right.
that may be the very thing that you opened this session with, this spiritual growth, of going through this and learning how to do it, feeling remorse instead of guilt, and not beating up on yourself. And accept yourself in the same way you're telling me God accepts you.
Right.
Would that make sense?
Definitely.
Okay. Can I ask you another strange question?
Let's go.
I'm sorry, what was your first name again?
Richard.
Richard.
Yeah.
Richard, you're the expert on you, right? So knowing what you know about Richard, and knowing, that you want to embrace this different way of looking at yourself and a different way of having this struggle without being so demanding and harsh on yourself. And that's good. That's a good plan. Knowing what you know about yourself, how would you sabotage that plan?
Guess by just giving up on the whole belief of I don't need to follow God or follow Christ.
Okay, is that...
That would be the most destructive.
that would be the most destructive for you. So
Just
let's... Screw it.
Kind of live for me.
So let's say that thought pops up, because it's definitely a human thought, right?
Sure.
What could you tell yourself if that thought pops up? Just screw it.
You know where this road leads? I think that's where
And you have a picture of where that road leads?
to a life of emptiness,
Okay.
more brokenness. I don't know, maybe depression or
Depression.
just not as fulfilling.
Not as fulfilled.
satisfying.
So you don't see yourself as fulfilled at the end of that role?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Is there any part of that you think we haven't looked at? Because we're pretty far away from where you were when you first came in to start talking about that. Is there another aspect of this? Because we've kind of come up with some alternative ways to think, and that you can tell yourself certain things in the midst of those temptations. Is there any aspect of that you think we ought to cover in more depth?
No, I mean, it's helpful.
Good.
Should I view them, or how do I, that like kind of makes me feel like those negative emotions, guilt or shame?
Yeah.
Which one?
Can you compare them? Can you compare the view?
Sure. In my mind, I think a woman ought to be viewed as a child of God, like their creation, wonderful, beautifully made, and like leave it as that, and acknowledge that. The problem that I can stumble into, and I think many others, is when you start viewing women as an object. Like, this is someone that's going to bring me satisfaction, and you turn inward and say, I'm going to view this person as an object. And I don't think that's what we were created to do. I don't think it's the right thing to do.
You have some wisdom for him?
Because what I what?
Any wisdom for him?
I mean, I think that you should, I mean, when you're looking at a woman, you should think about your mother.
That'll kill the mood. Okay, there we go. There we go.
I'm intrigued, though.
You're intrigued.
I'm intrigued.
Well, go on. We want to hear more. We're with Mom.
Okay, think about your mother, think about how strong she is, how hardworking, and how much dedication she put into raising you.
I think that's fair, because I have a ton of respect for my mom.
There you go.
And why not have that for every other woman?
So would that image help when those temptations come? Mom pops up.
Instant stop. That would be like,
Okay, we got the secret to life.
what would my mother think?
Yeah. Mom would be proud of me, you know? Yes. Anybody else?
Thank you for the suggestion.
Oh, over here. Sorry, I can't bend that way.
I also believe that I just hope that you're not putting the same expectations that you feel on yourself onto this person. Also remember, they have their own flaws and they have their own problems. And also, look at both the good and the bad sides of them, just like you look at that for yourself.
It's a beautiful word.
I agree.
Yep. I'm wanting to ask who wants to go out with them now, you know, but I'm going to refrain from that. I'm going to refrain.
I want to ask, are there any situations that usually contribute to the issue of looking at a woman in a different way than you ought to?
Situations or like conditions.
Like triggers, right? Situations would trigger, yeah, okay.
Definitely. Since everyone's already thinking it, I guess I might as well just like shout out the elephant in the room. On this struggle that I've been abstractly talking about, it's pornography. I'm just gonna like clear the air, clear out all the doubts.
Yeah.
Something I know, it's like, don't go down that road. It's not worth it. It's destructive. It doesn't build you up in any way. So for that particular struggle, I say the biggest conditions that make me more tempted is one, like being alone. Generally around nighttime for some reason. Just having no like accountability, like, ooh, no one will know, or no one has to know. Just kind of like keeping this in the dark.
Well,
So
it's
you
not
could-
there anymore. Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but, yeah. So you're alone, are you feeling lonely, or you're just alone?
It's like there's this, I think the root of it is the desire for that intimacy with someone. And then pornography is trying to get that desire, but going about it the entire wrong way. And it's fake. And it's the opposite.
And not what you value?
No,
Okay,
not at all.
yeah, okay.
So it's strange. One of the real pains is when you know this is bad for you, yet you still go for it anyway. And that's why I was saying, like, after many like years of dealing with this problem, it's like, that's why I thought I shouldn't be struggling with this
Oy.
anymore.
I'm diabetic and 65, and I still go for the chocolate cake. You know? That's just the way we are, but one of the things that we try to do in this therapy is, it might be difficult to just say, that has to stop immediately, but if we can decrease the frequency and the intensity and the duration of those things, we're moving in the right direction, you know what I mean?
Progress.
Yeah, there's progress. But if you beat yourself up, then...
Just makes it worse.
Well, yeah, because you can say there's always one thing that makes me feel better, and that's pornography.
It's like a lie that
Yeah.
I could, yeah.
The gift that keeps on giving, but it's not a nice gift, right?
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely.
Nice question, though.
Great question, yeah.
It was more a statement than a question, but I wanted just to like go down the road of, is everybody who dates perfect, right? Because you're saying like you can't date because you have this flaw, right? Everybody has flaws and they date, right? So it's like you put yourself in this corner where you can't date somebody, you want to date somebody because you have this problem. Everyone who dates has a problem, right? I think
For
just
sure.
forgiving yourself for that and not taking yourself off the table, because I'm sure there's many other attributes that you have that you could provide something great in a relationship.
So,
I-
some encouragement to date, yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like a girl deserves a guy who won't view them or some other pixels on a screen as an object, and just make them wonder, like, oh, is he like comparing me to these other people on a smartphone, on the computer screen? Like, I think women deserve someone who's like freed from that struggle. That's just my
Yeah, and
opinion.
the fact that you have that thought means it's on your mind and you know that, right? So I think you are valuing, in some way, and it's not, that doesn't make all of you, right? So I think that's what I'm trying to say, is the fact that you might have this flaw that you watch something you shouldn't be watching doesn't make you a horrible candidate, there's other people who do other things. I think that's just kind of what I would go down
But,
the road.
I mean,
Not the baby with the bathwater, I guess.
one thing I do know and I do believe is that love is patient. So I think I could be patient enough to work through this until it's more or less resolved, and then get out there. I'm 22. I don't need to rush anything.
Oh, yeah, I got shoes older than that. That is just so nice. You're a good guy, Anybody else?
Old and married here, so I got some advice for you now. So do you find yourself comparing women to the women in pornos, in a pornographic way? Do you find that you were comparing, and these women aren't holding up to that standard and you feel guilt because of that? Or you feel guilt just from...
So, like, I know it's a myth to think that, hey, as soon as I start dating someone or as soon as I'm married, this problem will just go away. And I don't buy that for a second. I
Good.
feel like if you don't have it resolved before you're dating, it's just going to carry over while you're dating. And then to have to confess that in the relationship, I just don't want to hurt in that way.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
why do you see it as being a problem? Is it your beliefs more so, or society?
I mean, I just think the idea of pornography in general, it's like going to school. Because when you go,
What school did you go to?
so
I'm really curious, please.
what I mean by that is like every time you go and watch pornography, you're learning things. You're changing your mind to think differently about women. I view it as like going to school and you're learning stuff, just not
And that learning becomes habitual
Right.
way that you would look at, I see, yeah,
right.
okay.
And maybe it's not an accurate depiction of reality. So
Don't be so hard on yourself, because being 31 years old and, you know, married, like, these are things that people do. I want to say it's natural, you know, but I'm going to say, if you did a show of hands of everybody in this room, you're probably going to get 100%. You know, so I wouldn't be so hard on yourself about those things. And
You mean a lust survey? Okay, yeah. Yeah,
a what survey?
lust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though you do hear, really, in this model, we would not touch your values and necessarily want to change your values. But we would want you to maximize the possibility that you live out those values without beating yourself up and
Right.
et cetera, you know, making yourself miserable. Nothing wrong with those values, yeah.
I was wondering, are you waiting for marriage? Like, is marriage something that's respectable enough for you to date a woman? Just asking.
Oh, don't you have to date first before?
No, yeah, that's true.
Oh.
Just asking if that's what you're waiting for.
Wait, just one more time. I think I didn't hear your question right.
Is marriage something that you're waiting for in order to date a woman? Is that what's holding you back? Like,
No.
are you in a position?
No, just not struggling with pornography anymore is something I'm waiting for before starting dating. Yeah. Do plan to date for some time before deciding to get married.
Hi. So my question is, do you feel like you're good enough? It's either yes or no. Yes or no.
Yes or no?
Oh, okay. Oh, it's yes or no. No.
You're holding yourself from dating someone. You actually think you're not worth of dating someone. And what's the reason?
So
Why do
you said
think
yes or no answer to your question, no. Would you like me to elaborate? All right. So just because I'm not worthy per se, I don't think it means I'm worthless. There's definitely a difference in that. And before God, I don't think any of us are good enough, but like I said earlier, he loves us nonetheless. I think it's because none of us are good that he sent, part of my beliefs, that's why he sent Jesus here, so that we could have that relationship with him. Because none of us were ever going to match up. So Jesus was kind of that bridge to fill in the gap for us to get there. So maybe in terms of my relationship with God, never going to be good enough. I've accepted that. And I'm okay with that.
your relationship?
But relationships, I don't need to be perfect. Neither does the significant other. That's a given because we're humans and we're fallible. But because I know that there are people that are free from this, that gives me the hope that it's possible, and I think it's worth striving for before dating.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer? Maybe it doesn't sound not the answer you wanted to hear, but
No, I think that everyone's good enough, and you can eventually find someone, and it's gonna be good.
what's the rush though?
No, there's no rush. I'm just asking if you think that you're good enough. I
Okay.
feel like many people have this problem,
Okay.
and
So it looks like we may need to wrap up there. What will be your takeaway? Something that you could do to move in the direction of achieving those values?
Accepting the mistakes, the stumbling blocks when they happen,
Mm-hmm.
not delving into guilt and self-pity. Be remorseful, but use that to propel me towards the freedom that
Yeah.
I aspire to be at someday.
Great. And in fact, that temptation could just be viewed as a cue for you to kick into that other way to think about things, rather than to use it to beat up on you.
Right.
Just a cue that all of us go through. Okay? Do you mind thanking him for that? Took some courage.